I would say wildfire probably had the most profound impact on me. Nature's ability to change the landscape at a massive scale in a very short amount of time gives you a lot of perspective about what influence you have as a human being. Name Cody Desautel, permanent position is Executive Director for the Colville Tribe. Prior to being the Executive Director about a year and a half ago, I was a Natural Resource Division Director for almost 9 years. The biggest challenges we had were funding and staffing, so capacity to do the things that we wanted. When you look at the climate change challenge that we all face, we don't have the staffing to really do the research, really do the monitoring to see what that rate of change is, what the implications of current management decisions are, current disturbance events like fire, and how do we adapt our management to account for that, not just now, but what we think the conditions will be 2, 3, 10 decades from now. And I'll give you a good example. In 2015, we had a huge fire year. We burned 255,000 acres of a 1.4 million acre reservation. And the preliminary estimates for fire rehab costs, it was about $50 million. And nationally, the Bureau of Indian Affairs at that time only got about 3.2 million annually for all tribes. And it was a bad year for tribes across the West. When you look at limited funding and capacity to implement restoration activities, or had we had the funding ahead of time, presumably that fire year would not have been as bad. It really creates those long-term consequences on the landscape. So we had much higher fire severity than I'd ever seen in my 20 years prior to that. What that means for recovery timelines is we have vast expanses of landscape, tens of thousands of acres that won't look the same as they did for at least a century. So even my grandkids won't see the forest the way I saw it growing up. There's some very severe consequences for a lack of staffing and funding and a lack of ability to accomplish those management goals. The aftermath of those events, it definitely changed my perspective on how we do resource management, how we need to plan into the future, and what a successful future looks like. And it's not doing what we did in the past. I think we need to redefine what our definition of a natural ecosystem is. And it's not an ecosystem that is devoid of people. The natural world is not static, that there's always change, and you have to think about how you want that change. And to the extent you can manage for it or influence it, that's the space you should be working in.